1 through 5, where Paul said, "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus." The word of the Lord. It's been 30 years since I've been up here doing this, so back when I was just a child. So we're going to try it again. And I figure in another 30 years, maybe I'll be back. Okay, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Well said, John Quincy Adams. I teach leadership at Winfield High School, and each year the leadership students design and raise money for a leadership t-shirt. Several years back, we were trying to figure out a design for the shirt when one of my students found that particular quotation, and it immediately became one of my favorites. As I was preparing for today, I knew I wanted to talk about leadership, so I started to surf the net for some ideas. I found an interesting definition for a very specific kind of leadership. According to St. Thomas University Online, transformational leadership inspires people to achieve unexpected or remarkable results. Some of the basic characteristics of transformational leadership are inspirational, in that the leader can inspire people to find better ways of achieving a goal. Mobilization, because leaders can mobilize people into groups that can get work done. And morale, in that transformational leaders raise the well-being and motivation level of a group through excellent rapport and empathy. This type of leader is known to possess courage, confidence, and the willingness to make sacrifices for the greater good. Langston.edu suggests that in the ideal form, transformational leadership creates valuable and positive change in the followers with the end goal of developing followers into leaders. After reading those definitions and thinking about them, I am convinced that Jesus was a transformational leader. I believe as Christians, we should certainly follow his lead. As I tell my speech students, it is important to cite sources for a speech. So you need to know that most of my text comes from a book called The 21 Indispensable Qualities of a Leader by John C. Maxwell, unless otherwise cited. 21 indispensable qualities. I usually cover this material in about 3 or 4 weeks at school, so I probably need to cut out some material for today. I figure at 2 minutes each, why that's only 42 minutes, and hey, we'll be out of here way before noon. Or I could just pick my top 5. Here we go. Quality number 1, leaders have character. Bernard Montgomery, British Field Marshal during World War II, said, "Leadership is the capacity and will to rally men and women to a common purpose, and the character which inspires confidence." Character is much more than talk. Character determines who we are. Who we are determines what we see. What we see determines what we do. I want to illustrate this concept by telling you about Bill Lear. Bill Lear was an inventor, aviator, and business leader who held more than 150 patents, including the automatic pilot, car radio, and 8-track tapes, which only goes to show you can't win them all. In 1964, he delivered his first production jet to a client. He was successful until 2 of his aircraft crashed under mysterious circumstances. He immediately sent word out to all of the owners of his jets to ground those planes until his team could determine what had caused the crashes. Lear himself flew test runs, almost losing his life in the process. Grounding the planes cost Lear a lot of money, and it planted seeds of doubt in the minds of his potential customers. As a result, he needed almost 2 years to rebuild his business. But Lear never regretted his decision. He was willing to risk his success, his fortune, and even his life to solve the mystery of those crashes, but not his integrity. And that takes character. As we live our lives and make choices today, we are continuing to create our character. We can assume that we are always right, or we can listen to what others have to say. We can bend the truth or stand under the weight of it. We can stay silent, or we can speak up even when it's unpopular. When we ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? We understand that he is our role model and that following him is a choice that will help us to define our character. Quality number 2, leaders have charisma. According to Google.com, the definition of charisma is a competing attractiveness or charm that can inspire devotion to others or a divinely conferred power or talent. I think we can combine those two definitions so that we can look at charisma as a quality that can inspire people to want to be around us to join our faith family. So how are we going to get some of that charisma? Dan Ryland, a pastor at a Lawrenceville, Georgia church, answers this question: being more concerned about making others feel good about themselves than we are making them feel good about us. Here's a perfect example. William Gladstone and Benjamin Disraeli, while both were highly respected leaders of Great Britain, had two completely different approaches when it came to people. The difference can best be illustrated by a story told by a young woman who dined with the two rival statesmen on consecutive nights. When asked her impression of them, she said, "When I left the dining room after sitting next to Mr. Gladstone, I thought he was the cleverest man in England. But after sitting next to Mr. Disraeli, I thought I was the cleverest woman in England." Disraeli possessed a quality that drew people to him and made them want to follow him. He had charisma. He once said, "The greatest good you can do for another is not just to share your riches, but to reveal to him his own." So how can we as the church draw more people to us? Number 1, love life. Be a celebrator, not a complainer. Be passionate about life. I believe Pastor Angela and our church leaders have done an incredible job of leading us down the path of celebration. Number 2, put a 10 on everybody's head. Not literally, but put a 10. What does that mean? Expect the best of them. Why is this important? Let me tell you one of my favorite stories to illustrate this point. There was an elderly man sitting on the porch of the local gas station that was situated on an old highway just outside of town. One day, a car stopped for gas, and the old gentleman started up a conversation with the people in the car. "Where are you headed?" he asked. The man answered, "Well, we're just moving into town. Maybe you could tell us something about this place." The old man looked at the family and said, "Sure, but first tell me about where you've been." The dad said he left his job because it was a horrible place to work. No one there could be trusted, and they were only interested in getting ahead, no matter who they had to climb over. The mom said the neighbors were unfriendly and never welcomed them into the community. The kids complained that the other kids just ignored them, and only the cool kids got to play on the sports teams. All in all, the family agreed they were really glad to leave that place. The old man listened and finally answered, "I hate to tell you, but that's pretty much what you're going to find here." The very next day, another family drove up to get gas and the same basic conversation ensued. Only this time, the dad said he had loved his work and was sorry to have to leave, but the move allowed for an increase in pay and more opportunities for advancement. The mom raved about her neighbors and told story after story about the get-togethers that they held regularly. The kids were sad to leave their school as they were both involved with several activities and really liked their teachers. Again, the old man listened and then said, "Yep, that's what you're going to find here." Moral of the story, we generally get what we expect. That's why it's so very important to expect the best. As members of this faith family, we must remember, people will forget what we said, people will forget what we did, but they will never forget how we made them feel. Quality number 3, leaders take the initiative. They take action and they make things happen. They also take more risks. John F. Kennedy said There are risks and costs to a program of action, but they are far less than the long-range risks and costs of comfortable inaction. They also make more mistakes. From Senator Robert F. Kennedy, only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Let me give you some examples. Henry Ford's early businesses failed and left him broke 5 times before he founded Ford Motor Company. Walt Disney went bankrupt after failing at several businesses. He was even fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and good ideas. Really? Albert Einstein was thought to be mentally handicapped before changing the face of modern physics and winning the Nobel Prize. It took Thomas Edison 1,000 attempts before inventing the light bulb. His teachers also told him growing up that he was just too stupid to learn anything. Dr. Seuss's first book was rejected by 27 publishers before it was accepted. Vincent van Gogh sold only 1 painting in his lifetime, though today his works are priceless. Michael Jordan was kept cut from his high school basket team for not being good enough. J.K. Rowling was nearly penniless, severely depressed, divorced, and a single mom who went to school while writing Harry Potter. Rowling went from needing government assistance to being one of the richest women in the world in a 5-year span through her hard work and persistence. All of them failures, and yet we know them today because they also became very successful. Trying something new is sometimes a bit scary. If it works, we can make it a tradition. If it does not work, we can evaluate what went wrong, and we can then decide to improve it and try again, or not. Either way, we have learned valuable lessons. This year in Student Council, the students decided to hold a color run for the first time. Oh, we made lots of mistakes. But after we evaluated it, we decided to try it again next year. Now we know what to do, and more importantly, probably what not to do. We know it will be a success next year. How can a church ever grow if it supports inaction with the excuse, well, we've never done that before? In the words of Robert Kennedy, there are those who look at things the way they are and ask why. I dream of things that never were and ask why not. I'm so very glad our church is full of dreamers. Quality number 4, listeners or leaders listen. A key to being a good listener is to find common ground with people. We should ask questions and then wait for the answers. If we are in the habit of listening only to the facts and not the person who expresses them, we need to change our focus and really listen. Listening to someone doesn't mean that we necessarily agree with them. What it does mean is that we understand that they have a right to their opinion, even if it is completely different from our own. We practice this a lot at our house. We were given 2 ears and only 1 mouth. I'm pretty sure that is a hint to listen at least twice as much as we talk. Here's a great story about someone who was listening carefully. This is, again, another one of my favorites. President Theodore Roosevelt was a man of action, but he was also a good listener, and he appreciated that quality in other people. Once at a gala ball, he grew tired of meeting people who returned his remarks with stiff, mindless pleasantries. So he began to greet people with a smile, saying, I murdered my grandmother this morning. Most people, so nervous about meeting him, didn't even hear what he said. But one diplomat did. Upon hearing the president's remarks, he leaned over and whispered to him, I'm sure she had it coming to her. The only way to find out what you're missing is to start listening. Leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. That's the law of connection. But before a leader can touch a person's heart, he or she has to know what's in it. That is done by listening. As a faith family, we add value to ourselves and others when we listen with an open heart. And finally, quality number 5. Leaders lead by example. Mahatma Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see in the world. Well, not exactly. That's sort of the bumper sticker version. What he really said was, we but mirror the world All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change toward him. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is, and the source of our happiness. We need not wait to see what others do. According to Joseph Rancid, speaker and author, Gandhi's philosophy does three things. Number one, it stops us from judging others. Number two, it replaces complaining about others with reflection on self. And number three, it stirs us into taking action within the only thing in the world over which we have any control, which is ourselves. If we could just follow Gandhi's teaching, the world truly would be a better place. There have been thousands of books written about leadership. What is important to us today is that we understand what some of those characteristics of leadership look like, and then how can we use them with our faith family. I believe the words of Mother Teresa give us some pretty good guidance. Let me leave you with some of her thoughts as written on the wall in her home for children in Calcutta. People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Please join me as we stand and affirm our faith.